right, thanks, John. And we all welcome John to his new role, and he's jumped in and getting up to speed real fast, seeing him at all of our events lately. So John, welcome. And for everyone, hello. Thanks for joining us for our first lunch bunch of 2023 in the new year. Looking forward to kicking this off with a discussion from Dr. Sam Spiegel on our online programming. Before I do that, for those of you that are new, I'm Bill Zisch, class of 79 in mining, and currently president of the Mines Alumni Board. We have a good group today, good topic. If you submitted any questions with your RSVP, we've already accommodated those. If you have any questions that come up during the discussion, John's going to be monitoring the chat room, and we will be able to get those questions to Sam. As most of you know, our lunch bunch programs are recorded. So if you want to see past programs, you're more than welcome to take a look at those. If you have any ideas on topics that you would be interested in hearing, we'd also love to hear from you. With that, I would like to turn this program over to Dr. Sam Spiegel, Assistant Vice President of Online Education. Sam?
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill, and John and the rest of the Alumni Association for inviting me to share some of what's happening with Mines Online. Today, I'm going to give you the 30,000-foot view overview of what's happening. If you have questions about more specifics, feel free to toss them out here or to connect with me after this session. Always happy to chat about it. Additionally, we have two different websites for Mines Online. Online.mines.edu is designed for students and prospective students. The olfaculty.mines.edu is designed mostly for faculty, but we also have a few alumni resources for alumni who want to get involved on the back end, perhaps as a content provider. And I'll share a little more about that in just a few moments. But first, as a reminder, back in 2017 was when President Johnson shared the vision for Mines at 150. Online was a piece of that vision. It was the summer of 2020 when we received full accreditation to offer online programs. So the work you see is predominantly been built in the last 2 to 3 years. I can get my computer to wake up. There we go. So one too many. Sorry about that. So Mines Online, the intent is to provide a comparable learning experience as you would if you were in a face-to-face program. We're trying to engineer, and by engineering in this case, we mean engineering learning experiences. So it's actually a very intentional design process that helps create rigorous coursework that's supportive for students and helps build understanding skills as well as networking and the kinds of things you would expect in a Mines program. As I mentioned, we have a very intentional design process for online. It's worth noting that online is not the same as remote. Remote is what happened when COVID hit, and remote is a way of trying to maintain instruction under a natural disaster. So those are more of a pulling it together as quickly as you can and getting it out there. We want to have really distinctive and well-built online experiences for our students. Our goal is to grow to about 1,000 fully online graduate students with the goal of reaching new students and generating alternate revenue. We're focusing on graduate programs as well as now focusing more on continuing and professional ed, which I'll jump into a little bit more in a few minutes. The Minds Online team, some of whom are on this call, are here to support, educate, and guide the faculty. But it's still Minds faculty who are building the courses or the course content and who are doing the teaching. So as I said, our programs are comparable to our residential programs, although some are exclusively online, like our Space Resources program. The experience should be engaging, cutting edge, and focus on the kinds of real-world problems that you would expect Minds graduates to tackle. I mentioned that we have its Minds faculty who are doing the teaching. We're not contracting it out to outside groups. And our primary focus on the graduate non-thesis programs. We are developing undergraduate online courses, but no undergraduate programs at this point. So it's just coursework to help students during the summer so they can do an internship and still take a class or give them a little more flexibility. The continuing and professional ed is an area that you'll see rapid expansion over this next year. The students have noted, and we get lots of feedback on how much they appreciate the design of the courses, as well as the instruction and the interactions. So I just threw in a few quotes here from students to give you a sense of what they highlight. We also hear a lot about how they get to really form relationships with other students and faculty. We have several students who have partnered together and formed new companies, several who have won either awards. We've got a couple that have won grants to continue the work they started in their courses. And as I mentioned, in our portfolio, we have basically three big buckets. We have the credit-bearing graduate programs, which are graduate certificates, master's non-thesis degrees, and PhDs that are fully online. We then have the undergraduate courses to support the residential undergraduate programs, and then continuing and professional ed is our third bucket. Those are the non-credit-bearing courses. So in the graduate degree programs, we have programs as well as a la carte courses. We have quite a number of certificate programs. Our master's programs are growing. I need to update that slide, as well as our PhD. The fully online programs run in a condensed semester. So the fully online courses are running in 8 weeks rather than 16 weeks. And that's to help accommodate the working schedules. We have mostly working professionals who we're targeting there. I listed a few of the undergraduate courses that we have, and then just a note about continuing ed. But on the credit-bearing side, we have 29 graduate programs that we've launched in the last 2 years. We have 4 programs that are in development. We've built over 220 courses, and that's continually growing. And I pulled data yesterday for this semester. So far, we have 766 students engaged in online. 206 of those are classified as fully online based on state criteria for how we define students. But what we're finding is that our online students are doing as well as, in some cases, a little better than our residential students. And that's based on retention rates, grades, performance on common exams. So when we have a online and residential program, often the assessments are identical. The learning outcomes are identical. That's what makes it that course. And so we see consistent performance as well as post-course outcomes and success. So career advancement, success in other courses, as I mentioned previously, awards and other parts. The focus with our online courses is to be supportive of the students, but to keep it rigorous. I know a lot of alumni have asked me about, are we going to keep the rigor? And I can tell you, these are still Minds courses. There's still a lot of work. They're still challenging, but they're rewarding on the back end. Another quote, some of the supportive aspects has to do with just the design of the courses. So this student had commented on how they can pause the videos. They can then go onto the web and dig further. It lets a student adjust how they interact with the course based on how they learn best. So I want to spend a little bit of time on the continuing ed side. That's an area we're starting to really focus on. Continuing ed is an area that all of higher ed is paying attention to now. They're expecting growth in that area by next year to be over an additional $1.2 billion. There's several groups that you may have heard of that do what are called MOOCs. These are massive online, I forget what the other O is for, and then courses. MOOCs tend to have 40 to 80,000 students in a class. Typically, when you have 40,000 students in a class, less than 100 actually finish the class and do whatever they need to do if they're going to get grades or pay for it. We're also seeing on the flip side more interest in online and continuing ed from industry, where more and more industry wants learning experiences that people can do while they're on the job. Thank you, Heather. She put a massive open online course. Appreciate that. Last fall, we did a survey of the Alumni Association. We had over 400 people respond. The gist of the response is that more than 70% of the interest was focused on the career development side, more so than the credit-bearing side from the alumni. So what we're trying to do on our continuing ed side to make sure that these are really distinctive. The reason Minds needs to be very distinctive in our online offerings is for several reasons. One, it's a tough market out there. So we need something that's going to rise above the rest of the competition. Also, this is Minds. We have a reputation for having really strong learning experiences, and we want to make sure we not only maintain it, but we continue to advance that. So one of the aspects we're doing in our continuing ed space on the online courses is ensuring that in addition to technical content, there's also aspects around professional skills, whether that's problem solving, analyzing and thinking, business management, leadership, global, so that you're learning these in the context of the technical content. We're working on a plan where we can do a version analogous to what's commonly called badging. So because these are not transcribed, you don't get college credit for it. The question is, how do you show your employer that this is what you are able to do? So we're working on that process right now. That requires an authentication system that others can access to verify that it's correct and accurate. For the continuing ed online development, right now we have 3 priority areas. The first being energy, which would be like our CCUS program. As Doug mentioned, climate type courses, methane emission, power systems. There's been a lot of requests for executive training, communication skills for STEM professionals, project management, leadership areas. And then what we've labeled digitization. So basic programming, data science, cybersecurity, how to work with robots as part of your team. Within each of these areas, we'll have some experiences that are around the hot topics of interest. So it might be a 10-minute module that just gives you a big overview of what's happening in the area. There'll also be experiences that dig a little deeper, getting into understanding the big issues, as well as starting to develop or continuing to develop competencies, so the skill sets and knowledge. At this point, maybe some of you are wondering, so how do you get involved? In addition to being students, we have a program now we call the excuse me, Alumni Knowledge Archive that we've been working on with the Alumni Association. I have the website there on the screen. This is an opportunity for you to provide content for some of the continuing ed courses. The way we've been collecting it is when you sign up, we have someone who will contact you and will set up an interview. And using the interview, we use video and other resources to then capture the content, and then we build that into courses. On the credit-bearing side, those videos are then available to our faculty so they can embed it into their credit-bearing courses. So instead of flying somebody out for a 5-minute talk in their class, they can just use the video. Pause there a moment in case anybody's writing down the website. Some of the questions that were posted when people registered, some were general that we knew we would touch on through the other parts, but one was a question, or several, a question about self-study options. On the credit-bearing side, where you're moving towards a degree, we cannot offer self-study courses. To offer a self-study course on the credit-bearing side requires a different kind of accreditation and a different kind of program design, which isn't consistent with what Minds wants to accomplish. We are building a very large library of self-study modules on the continuing ed side. We don't have many of them released yet. We're still working on those, but if you stay posted, I'm hoping to make a significant dent by the end of the year. The other question was about career development pathways. That's another area we're working on. Some of it on the continuing ed side and some of it on the credit-bearing side. We're also working towards a model that would allow some of the continuing ed work to apply towards the credit-bearing side. For a whole variety of federal reasons, we need to keep the two separate, but there are ways to transfer some of it. We won't ever be able to have a degree come from the continuing ed side, but it might replace a course or a couple of courses. With that, I will pause. Again, I just wanted to give you the big overview and then see what questions you all have. So, happy to respond to questions either from the chat or I'll let John and Bill coordinate the asking. I know many of you, you're not that shy.
Question. Hello.
Yeah. Yes, Stephen, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure. This is Stefan, Master's in Environmental Engineering, class of 2022. Thanks for the presentation so far. I was just curious to know, obviously, all of these online certificates, they have their own admission requirements. And I was discussing with a friend of mine, since I did my undergrad overseas, who's quite interested in one online certificate, which is, I think, the one in petroleum geophysics. I'm just curious to know, when it comes to admission requirements, obviously, it is something that we still have to consult, like the individual departments in charge, or the online education platform also has like generic admission requirements, something like that. Sorry, I know this question may seem not adequate, but just that I'm not accustomed to the online platform at Minds, online website at Minds. So he has a few questions that he asked me, which I couldn't answer. So I'm just curious to know.
Yeah, and that's a good question. It's something that is a little more complicated than any of us would like it to be or imagine. But for the on the credit bearing side, the degree side, the departments and programs determine the criteria for admission. They should be listed. So when they go to the program, if you go to online.minds.edu, down near the bottom, you'll see all the programs listed. If you click on a program or touch on the link, it should take you to more information and lead you to what the admissions requirements are. Additionally, if there's something that's not clear, you can reach out to either the department or program. There should be a link on there, or reach out to the recruiting department. Jesse Lubka is our online recruiter who maintains all of that information as well.
Okay, thanks. Because I know when I was applying to Minds as well, you know, as a graduate student, because I did graduate school at Minds, on the website, right, they actually mentioned you can contact grad admissions, that is the general admissions office. And at some point you're asking yourself, should I contact the admissions office, which is grad admissions, or should I contact my department? So that was kind of the confusion there, but thanks for your response.
Sure.
Hey, Sam, we have a fair number of questions popping up in the chat, so I'll just read them out to you kind of one at a time, if that's good with you.
Sure.
So we have a question from Lindsay saying, I'm curious if discussions around having more online undergraduate courses available to undergraduate students has been something that Minds Online would consider.
Absolutely. We have 15 being built right now that will be available this summer. So we continue to grow the offerings for undergraduates. But again, it's at the course level, not at a program level.
Thank you, Lindsay. We have a question from Tyler saying, do we get online access to Arthur Lake's library with the variety of programs you have available?
So it depends on the course and the program. If you're on the credit bearing side, you get access to Minds library just as you would if you were a residential student. On the continuing ed side, it'll vary depending on which course or program.
Lindsay had a follow-up remark just saying, great to hear. I'm an undergraduate CASA advisor, and we continuously get this question, especially more online classes during fall.
Yeah, the undergraduate dean is helping coordinate to ensure that the courses that are being built for the undergraduates make sense and fit with the overall portfolio.
We have a question here from Heather saying, any plans for MOOC? Are Minds Online master programs part-time or full-time?
At this point, we are not considering MOOCs. More and more, we're seeing people moving away from those. When I was at University of Pittsburgh, I ran 2 of them, and they were not great experiences for most of the people. As far as full-time or part-time, that's up to the student. Most of our online graduate students take 1 course at a time. So they take, in a 16-week semester, they'll take 2 courses, one the first 8 weeks and one the second 8 weeks. There are some, if they're not working, who will take more courses and get it in a more condensed time frame. Did that get at what you were asking, Heather? Okay.
Then we have a question here from Daryl saying that Hillsdale College in Michigan offers free courses online. Is Minds considering any free or low-cost courses online?
Yes, we will have a few coming out, and a base of self-study courses in the continuing ed side that will be available freely. We had a National Science Foundation grant where we've been developing a set of modules and courses related to advanced manufacturing and data science that will be rolling out sometime the later part of this summer, and those will be available for free.
Heather had a follow-up comment just saying, in the undergraduate target courses area, I have found that students doing internships are very excited to pair with courses.
Absolutely. We've just hired a new industry liaison person to work with us in the online team. And their first task is working to work with several core industry partners, in a few cases, create the partnership, but to better understand what their needs are and how our online programming can address those.
We have a question here from Mark saying, does the Trefny course, Foundations of Course Design, cover a substantial portion of creating an online course?
Thanks, Mark. Good to see you. The Trefny Foundations of Course Design is the basic foundations of how you design courses, which works for both online and residential. We co-developed that course. After a faculty member completes the course, when they're working with one of our online learning experience designer, the designer continues the faculty education so that we can have ongoing education for the faculty where we really dig into the online pieces. We also document that as they work with the OLED. So for each faculty member, we can show their level of mastery in the different areas. Yeah, looks like you unmuted, Mark. You have another question?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, yeah, thanks for that. But I'm actually currently taking the Foundations course, but I'm actually doing it for a, an in-person class that I'm working on. So, but I'm also interested in working online later. So,
yeah, that course is required before you can start building online. And part of the reason we moved to that being a common course is we want to make sure that teaching at Minds is teaching at Minds, regardless of the modality. So we want faculty who can do their best with the content they have.
Hey, Sam, I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more on what are the courses that we're currently offering that are like the hottest topic, the most popular, and then what are the areas that you're currently really excited about and see a lot of growth potential that we're putting energy towards?
Sure, great question, John. So our biggest program right now is space resources. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, this is about finding, extracting, processing, and utilizing resources in outer space. It was the first program of its kind in the world. Actually, it might still be the only program of its kind in the world. So that one's very popular. The other areas we're seeing growing quickly are the carbon capture, utilization, and storage area. And we just recently launched a cybersecurity certificate, and the interest in there is just booming. I think in expression of interest, that one has now exceeded our space resources program in at least expression of interest. Did I get all of the pieces? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, very cool. Thank you.
Sam, John, not a question, but I do note that Tim Sanger is on the call. Tim is our Minds Alumni Board champion for alumni lifelong learning and development, and I know has worked closely with Sam. I saw a comment earlier, Tim, that you commented with regard to it being pretty straightforward to record content. You might want to share that comment with us.
Yeah, so to Sam's point, sorry, my video's a little wonky today, but to Sam's point, with Charles, he does the recording. It's like an hour long. He gives you some general topics, so probably covered depending on your background. But as I found out, it just kind of flows. We'll start with one place, and then a lot of us, we start talking, and then Charles will go, "Oh, that's a great thing. Okay, let's focus on that." And then we'll kind of go back and forth. It was an hour long, video recorded session. I did it remotely. You can also do it on campus if you're local. It did not feel like an hour. It felt like it was like 10 minutes. It was just a great conversation that just happened to be recorded. So yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to give back, share some of your experience that can be used for courses later on. But it's so simple and easy. I just encourage you to go do it.
Thanks, Tim.
Yep.
Hey, Sam, earlier you mentioned a corporate kind of contact. One of the things I hear in that context a lot from alums is what was Sturmel's class, or the Sturmel's classes, and is now Andy Peterson in mineral economics. Is maybe in the weeds, but is that the kind of thing you're talking about with companies, like hosting courses like that?
Courses like that. We also have Sid Salea is working with us with a company where on the continuing ed side, we built out some courses based on specific needs they had. And now we're working on a plan where the folks who went through that can transition into the degree side. So some of it's customized, some of it's more, we did a fairly large survey of a variety of industries to identify what are the pressing needs right now for the workforce at the engineer level or upper management level related to STEM. And so we have a pretty good database of what they're looking for. Now it's fleshing out all of that content. So on the industry side, sometimes they just want a 2-hour basic, how do I program in Python? Because I suddenly have this machine and I need to use some Python, and we didn't learn that when I was at Mines, if they're an alumni. Other cases, it's something more elaborate, like the Petroleum Super School, which is a 2-week experience that we turned online due to COVID, but now the industry folks prefer the online to the residential, with the caveat they do like the field trips. So we'll get some of those worked in as well. Did that get at it, Gretchen?
Yeah, no, that's great. I hear a lot of alums talk about either taking Sturmel's classes as students or, being at a company where they would come out and teach that course. And it sounds like that's kind of, you're looking for more options like that and working with the faculty, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Faculty and alumni.
Sam, how does the field trip aspect work? Is that a requirement, or is it kind of just like a icing on the cake for those who can attend?
So it depends on the program. We have one program that has one required field experience. Most of the others, it's an optional piece that you can do. If it's required, we work with the faculty and programs to ensure there's enough variety and options that it's reasonable for folks around the world to be able to do it. We have quite a number of our international students in online as we're seeing very steady growth. So we have students participating from around the world. We have some of our faculty teaching from around the world. We're at a conference in Madrid they're still teaching.
For international growth of students, where are you kind of seeing those areas? Are they in kind of select regions or peppered all across the globe?
Right now, it's fairly peppered. We had anticipated it to be more localized. Some of the places we have very strong industry partnerships. Regrettably, the country of their location doesn't have great internet. And that's unfortunately an absolute, you have to have internet to be able to do online.
Thank you. I'd like to invite anybody else who's in the audience. If you have a question or any type of question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it that way, or you're welcome to send it in the chat and I can read it out as. But don't be shy. We'd love to hear from you and answer your questions.
Has anybody on the call participated as an online student? Anything you'd like to share?
You can look through the list, Sam, and see if you recognize any names and put somebody on the spot.
Let's see a couple names who I believe have taught an online course here. We have some of our online learning experience designers on the call, as well as some of our IT colleagues, if there's broader questions. But in general, I can say online is a part of higher ed now. It's an expectation that students have, particularly the younger generations. They live on the computer, although not so much a computer as their phone. Many of our courses can be managed on a phone. I'm not sure how it works better for younger eyes because it's very tiny still, but our courses we make so that they're accessible. We're also seeing a growing population of students who have disabilities because the online can provide a little more support to give them the accommodations they need.
I've got a question that may have already been answered on the, you mentioned about the continuing ed and having some free courses in there, but what about the possibility for auditing classes, or does it require that you enroll either in continuing ed or online full-time, or are there options being looked at for that?
So you can do a single class if you would like as non-degree seeking on the credit bearing side. You can audit a class on the credit side. In the continuing ed space, we have two different models we're exploring right now to see which will be most feasible, both on the consumer side and then on mine side. But we will have some, again, the free ones are not posted yet, but we will have an area where there's some you can get into for free. We did try taking a piece of a credit bearing course to make it free so people could get a sense of what it was, but it wasn't quite the same experience just seeing what's in the shell. So we're trying to see what we can do on that end.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Sam? I saw a couple comments that people still like Sturmel's class, so we'll have to work that in. That's pretty universal, particularly when it was original Sturmel taught a long time ago. John, I note a question from Tyler Blond looking to know where the archive for our past lunch bunch sessions are. I don't have an answer to that. I don't know whether you know, John. I know Ruth would. Ruth is traveling back from an event, but do you know where those are, John?
Yep. I was going to mention that in my wrap up, but I just didn't want to jump ahead of Sam in that session. So if there are no other questions for Sam or about Minds Online, then we can go ahead and wrap it up. So thank you to Sam for giving us your time and for presenting. We really appreciate it. And thank you to Bill for giving that intro. And thank you to everybody for taking time out of your lunch and your day to join us for Lunch Bunch. We really appreciate it. All of our Lunch Bunch past events are currently posted online. You can find those on the weare.minds.edu website. If you look under the Lunch Bunch section, at the bottom of that page, you will find the 2022 recordings, 2021 and 2020 recordings. So plenty of content to review there. And Amy very graciously put the direct link for that in the chat if you want to quickly grab that. What you'll also see on that page is that next month, we have our Lunch Bunch already planned and up and running. So we would love to see all of you come back and join us there. Next month, we are going to be having 3 of our head coaches come and join us. We're going to have Prior Orser, who is the head of the men's basketball team. He's going to join us. Claire McDaniel, who's the head coach of the women's swimming team. She'll join us. And then also Robbie Bales, who is the head coach of the men's baseball team, is going to join us. We're going to have a really great discussion about spring sports. So think about checking that out, registering and coming back out to join us then. You'll also see all of the other lunch bunches that we have planned for the rest of the semester out there as well. So if you want, you can go ahead and register for as many as you want. And once we're off here, the presentation will be edited and cut down, and we will also post this video online as well. So if there's any content that you missed or would like repeated, you'll be able to find this recording online in the next 2 weeks or so. So please make sure you check out our website, register for future lunch bunches. We'd love to have you. But with that, I'll call this one over, and we really appreciate seeing everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
Sam.
you.
Really appreciate it. Look forward to continuing development this year, as I know things are moving fast. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Sam, and everybody have a great rest of your day.